he's like the guy who's lived the life that I've always wanted to live. You know, fighter pilot years ago, missionary pilot. You know, that was kind of my track record when I was younger, and then, you know, the Lord had other plans. So I've always looked up to this guy, and if you have any opportunity to talk to either one of them, they are truly fantastic people, and so I'm excited to introduce them, to see what their ministry was when they were missionaries, and then also what they're doing now. And again, if for those, a few of you that are here that are new, definitely get a chance to get to know them, because they are some of the best people you'll ever meet. So Gary and Stacy, come on up. And the other thing, I joked with him, you know, years ago, he used to fly with oxygen, right? Well, now he's back to flying with oxygen again, although not the type he'd like, I'm sure.
Well, thanks, Ian. So we'll just jump right into this. If I can make my clicker click. I'm going to cut the childhood shenanigans, everything, just jump right into, after high school, I went to the United States Air Force Academy. And while I was there, I met Stacy, and my senior year there, we dated. After graduation, I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Air Force and had a slot to pilot training, which was what I was all about. That's what I was there for. That's what I wanted to do. So I went to Williams Air Force Base, Arizona. This is the primary jet trainer, the T-37, and then this is the T-38, the advanced jet trainer. It's a supersonic sports car. We call it the White Rocket. After I graduated, my mom pinned on my silver Air Force wings. And then I went to Florida, Tampa, Florida, to train in the F-4. I was assigned then to the Philippines, but before I left, I stopped by Tacoma, Washington to see Stacy. Her dad took us out to the Missouri. Used to be over there at Bremerton before they towed it back to Hawaii. So we did that before I got to the Philippines. Here you can see my squadron, the 90th Fighter Squadron. And there I am. While I was there, I met this couple, John and Marnie Pickering. They were with the Navigators. How many know about the Navigator ministry? Some of you. Yeah, they started in World War II on some ships and grew into a pretty big organization. They work on college campuses now and universities, and military bases around the world still. And they did a lot of spiritual growing there under their tutelage, I guess. Their tagline used to be to know Christ and make him known. So you may notice that First Baptist has kind of ripped that off a little bit. They put Jesus in there, to know Jesus and to make him known. But they were really big about discipleship training. That's what their ministry is, not to just evangelize, but to make disciples and have new believers become disciples, and then to become disciple makers, to reproduce. One of the things you'd hear if you hung around Navigators, how's your quiet time? They're really big on prayer and meditation and just spending time alone with the Lord in the Word and prayer. I noticed that they changed their tagline. I don't know if you can read that. To know Christ and make him known, and to help others to do the same. So that's kind of what their ministry was. I did a lot of growing there, and I felt like before I left for the Philippines station, I had planned to get married when I got back after my tour. But I decided I wanted to do, let me just go back to the Navigators here just for a second. So here, the hand illustration, they were really big on the Word. So you need to hear the Word. You need to be in a church and hear preaching, or I guess now you can do it online, but to hear good preaching, you need to read the Word. You need to study the Word, memorize the Word, and meditate on the Word. So this was all kind of their program to mentor new believers and really get them into the Word. So the plan was to go back after my tour in the Philippines and get married, but I decided I wanted to do another tour there, and so I went home and we got married. But right before I left, I met this guy, John Byram. So I was at chapel at the Clark Air Base there, and he was an Army helicopter pilot during Vietnam, and now he was flying for an organization called New Tribes Mission in mountains and jungles there in the Philippines. And he invited us to come up, or invited me, and I guess some of the navigator guys were there anyway, invited us to come up and visit the flight base up north of Clark Air Base. And so made a big impression on me. So I went home, got married, and right after we got back, that was the end of April into May, and then we had the 3-day weekend come up for Memorial Day, and they gave us a 3-day weekend at the base. So we went up and visited this flight base. So here, several of the navigator crew going up there. You can see John Pickering, my mentor, there on the far left. And we got up to this kind of through the mountains, kind of a trek, interesting up into the mountains. And so there's John Byram, the New Tribes pilot, in the middle there, and the Super Cub that he was flying out into the mountains. I tried a new toothpaste this morning. My mouth is, my tongue stuck to the roof of my mouth. So what we saw there was quite enlightening, surprising, shocking. So we'd kind of seen I guess the poverty in a third world nation like the Philippines, but this was a whole different deal up in the mountains. We saw the spiritual darkness, these people that were living very simple lives, growing rice, just trying to survive, and the power that the witch doctor or the village shaman or whatever had over them. It was all about sacrificing to the spirits, and it was just really life-changing. And so we thought, wow, we could do this after I get out of the Air Force. We could, do something like this, fly to support missionaries. The tribe that we visited, the little village we visited, had missionaries there, and so John was supporting them with this little airplane they're flying up and to take them in and out of these rugged mountain areas, and also then fly their supplies. Sometimes you get tired of eating bananas or whatever's locally available, and you'd like to get some different food. Anyway, you get the mail, whatever. While I was in the Philippines, I made 3 deployments up to Korea, and it's a long trip up there. Have to air refuel to make it over the ocean, get up there. That's kind of what it looks like from the boomers picture in the KC-135. I don't have a picture of what it looks like from my point of view, looking at the tanker and the boom coming down there. But after the Philippines, came back to the United States, was stationed at a couple of different bases. This is at Moody Air Force Base. Just got home from a deployment, and my growing family there. We got 4 of our 5 kids are there, and so we didn't even know that photo was taken. That was kind of interesting. Somebody from the base photo lab, a photographer, had taken that, and we didn't even know about this picture until many years later. So there's our family, pretty much at the time at Moody Air Force Base there in Valdosta, Georgia. We were stationed then at George Air Force Base, California. This was my last flying assignment in the Air Force, and I didn't know that at the time. But so this is what they call the end of tour flight. My last flight there at George, before I was being transferred to Italy to a non-flying job, which I wasn't really crazy about. But the family came out to see the end of tour flight. They usually hose you down when you come down the ladder from the plane. If I'd have known that was my last flight in the Air Force, I probably would have cried. But I thought after my tour in Italy with the staff job, I would come back to a flying assignment, but that didn't happen. While I was there in Italy, got promoted to lieutenant colonel and did the staff job. Came back, hoping to fly. There we are, just getting back from Italy. So we got the whole crew there, all 5 of the kids. But I was assigned to be the commander of the Air Force ROTC detachment just over the mountains here in Ellensburg, Washington, at Central Washington University. So that was the way I ended my career. It was a real bummer. But, the Berlin Wall, the whole thing, the Soviet Union had collapsed, the whole thing, just when I was coming out of this assignment in Italy, coming back, and there was no way to get into a flying job. The United States was just mothballing carriers for the Navy and whole fighter wings. There just was not an airplane for an old lieutenant colonel guy trying to get back into flying. And the F-4 had pretty much been phased out. It was all F-15s, F-16s. So there was not a spot for me to fly anymore, which is, again, kind of sad. Anyway, we had been talking with New Tribes Mission, had actually applied, and thinking back to that scene with John Byram in the Philippines, and just, again, it was life-changing to see the spiritual darkness that these people lived in, and to see what these church planters, these out in the middle of nowhere trying to reach these unreached people groups. And so we were accepted with New Tribes Mission and spent a year down in Baker City, Oregon, training, and it was very practical, trying to teach us to live kind of rough. You couldn't go down to the market and go into the freezer section and buy your Tasty Bird frozen chicken breasts, right? So you got to kind of do it this way. So we kind of went through this training for a year. And Stacy was a real trooper there. She's going to fix us chicken dinner. We had times there where she had to cook. They'd have like a week where you had to cook from scratch. No boxes, no cans, no box mixes. It was just, get a sack of flour or a sack of rice or whatever, and prepare meals. So it was very practical training. We spent 6 weeks of that year in the mountains down in Oregon, living in a house that I built out of pole. Actually, my oldest son helped. And I don't know if you can see the poles there and the plastic, that's ag bag. So if you see these big rolls out in the fields where the farmers have cut hay and rolled it up in these plastic bags. So we got some plastic bags from these farmers down there, and smelled like rotting or mildewing hay, I guess. Had to wash it out. Anyway, we built the house there. The stove, I didn't know how to weld. That was something I learned there. And so I had a 55-gallon drum and cut it and welded. I've got a cooktop there, cooking on top. The circle you see there to the bottom right there, that was another drum, a 15-gallon drum, I think, that I'd cut and put in there. That was our oven. So that door, that circle, that opened, and actually on the other side I had another one, so Stacy could bake pie and bread at the same time. It was like a double oven. And the blue tank on the top is our water heater. I think that was a 30-gallon tank, so we could have hot water. And you had to haul all the water up from a stream. So it was really quite primitive living, trying to prepare you to be out in the middle of nowhere and survive. You go down to the stream and get water and wash your clothes. They had these tubs, and you see the boys there doing their laundry, and a wringer there. It was a hand-cranked wringer. So it was really kind of a throwback to earlier days in America, but to be ready to go overseas. So then we went, after that year, we went to Camden, Missouri. This is New Tribes Language Institute, and we were there for a semester. So this is really interesting training. You're learning to learn an unwritten language. How do you learn an unwritten language? So a lot of these tribal people out in these remote areas are totally illiterate. There's no There's no writing, no written language. How do you do that? So at the time, they used to put everybody kind of through the same training. Didn't matter if you were going to be a dorm parent or a supply buyer or whatever. They didn't know exactly. So we got to do 6 months of that, and that was very interesting. Oh, another one was Bible translation. How we got our Bible in English out of Aramaic and Greek, and then into Latin and into English, and just that whole process. And what else culture study. How do you go into this tribe like the Goheens have done here from church, to go to New Guinea out in this tribe and just start to learn about what the people believe, their cosmology, the spirits, where they came from, where they're going, the whole cultural, how they plant their rice or whatever. I think in New Guinea there's a lot of root stuff, manioc roots or something, whatever. Learning how these people in this strange culture live. So that's part of the training there. So we were only there a semester. I think the whole program's about 1.5 years. But they called and said, "Oh, we need a pilot in the Philippines. Can you come down and train to go overseas and fly in the mountains in the jungle?" So we went to McNeil, Arizona. This is New Tribes Mission Aviation flight base. So I keep talking about New Tribes, so you're all aware maybe, or maybe most of you are aware that it now is Ethnos 360. So, if you're talking to the Goheens, or when he's here, he's talking about Ethnos 360. So New Tribes changed their name. But at the time, this is New Tribes Mission Aviation. You can see some of the aircraft there, and that's the runway, just a kind of a gravel. They just run a bulldozer up and down through there to get the cactus and the sagebrush and stuff cleared off, and that's your landing surface. And we had shorter ones shorter and narrower strips we practiced on. Stacy there. Oh, so we lived in a trailer there. Anyway, this is all preparation to go to the Philippines. I flew the Super Cub, like you saw several slides back. The John Byram flying the Super Cub. The Cessna 185 was the main workhorse, I think, at the time in a lot of different fields, different countries where aviation was being used. So this is the family right before. This is June of '96, right before we're ready to leave for the Philippines with the Super Cub there. If you don't know the Philippines, so it's due south of Taiwan, due east of Vietnam, north of Indonesia. There's a little better picture. So you can see Clark Air Base, where I'd been stationed there for 2 tours. The Aditao Flight Base up to the north, up in the mountains. New Tribes had a flight base at Lada down on Palawan. That's that long, skinny island. And then down in Mindanao, the Malaybalay flight base. So 3 different flight programs there in the Philippines, missionaries on all 3 of those islands, and the flight program supporting them. And all of them out in really mountain and jungle and remote areas. The kind of that red-orange down there, Mindanao, a lot of Muslims down there. And they actually had what they called it, the Muslim Autonomous Region of Muslim Mindanao, ARMM. So they were trying to basically break away from the Philippines, and a lot of fighting over the years. Martin Burnham was our chief pilot there, checked me out on the airstrips there on Luzon, and then also down on Palawan. So we could go down if one of the other pilots was sick or had to go home or on furlough or whatever. We could also go down and fly and cover their island. His wife Gracia running the radio network. So she trained Stacy. Martin trained me to do the flying, and Gracia trained Stacy to do the radio network. She'd make contact morning and evening with all the tribal stations on all 3 islands. It was really crazy. They'd have a roll call and just go through, and this is on high frequency single sideband radio. So those other bases were, 500 and 600 miles away, and with the HF radio you can do that. And so check everybody in. She could set up schedules if some of the stations needed to talk to somebody at another station. They could order supplies from the supply buyer, and this was all done on the HF radio. Martin and Gracia were taken hostage, kidnapped for ransom deal by these Muslim extremists during our second tour there. And Martin had the Philippine Army chase him around for over a year. And Martin wound up, this was in the 17th gun battle between the Army and the Muslim crazies that Martin was shot and killed. Gracia was shot through the thigh, but she survived, and the Army helicopter out, and she made it back. You may have read her book or heard her speak at different mission conferences or whatever, or seen, read her books. Anyway, this is she came to visit us here. I guess it says 2013. What's that? She has spoken here. Yeah. Good call. So just to kind of give you an idea, that's the flight base there in the middle of the picture. So it did take some special training, specialized training to be able to fly in the mountains and the jungle. I don't know if you can see the airstrip there. This is what it looks like on final approach. Just to the right of that red handle on the airplane, that's the airstrip there. If you walked out of the front of the hangar, straight out the front of the hangar, you get to our house. And straight behind our house was our airstrip. So there I am taking off. I don't know if you can see the clothesline poles just to the far left of the screen there. It's our backyard. So we could walk from the hangar, just a few steps back and forth to the house, to the airstrip. Everything was very, very conveniently there at the flight base. Okay. This was an unusual kind of a, I don't know, say a freak thing, but had the airplanes from all 3 of the islands up there. One of them had come up to be repainted, and one we were doing an inspection or something anyway. At the big bare place there in the front, we had just buried a 5,000-gallon tank in there. We used to do fuel out of a 55-gallon drum, and it was tedious. You'd use the fuel, and then you'd have to pull the pump siphon thing out and get another drum and open it up. And basically, then we put this big tank in underground, and it really made that a lot easier. So there's Stacy running the radio, and not only did she do the network, then checking everybody in and doing the supply orders and all that, but she would follow me, what we call flight following, when I was flying. And at every place, we'd always say we're getting ready to take off, and when we're landing, and taking off, how many souls on board, and then a couple of checkpoints around the island. So if you had a problem, they'd know where to kind of go look. I wasn't a mechanic, but it did help with a lot of mechanical work there over the years. I think we just painted that airplane and are putting it, reassembling it. You may wonder how these little airplanes get overseas. You take them apart, take the wings off and the tail off and everything, and put them in a crate and sea container and ship them. And then when they get there, you got to reassemble them. So that was our ministry there. Flying the missionaries, their kids, cargo, medical evacuations. Sometimes it looked like that. Took the seats out and loaded it with cargo. So we were flying for, these missionaries that were on the cutting edge, we say cutting edge of tribal evangelism. Really out in remote areas, and they needed get them and their kids in and out, get them supplies, mail, just awesome people we were flying for, these missionaries that were doing this work out in the remote areas, these guys were really, this was a really, really difficult area. So sometimes you're visiting, fly in and bring in supplies, but, you're the first English speakers they'd seen in a while. Just that their kids would want to have you read them a story, or they would show you what they're doing in their homeschooling or whatever. In this case, I was there for a birthday party. That family, the mom was amazing. Teaching the kids violin lessons, keyboard, helping in the clinic. They built a clinic in that village. But this is what it was about, was these missionaries doing that culture study, the language study, be there for years to learn to speak the language so he could teach the Bible, and then maybe start translating the Bible, give them written material. It was a privilege and an honor to work supporting these people. Jonathan's this guy's wasn't as good in the language. He had to kind of use some notes there, but basically teaching Bible lessons. So you have people respond, accept Jesus, and become baptized believers, and a new church is born. So I don't know if those are song books or some scripture portions or what. That's what that village looks like from the air. No roads in or out. The big modern transportation there's a footbridge, I don't know if you can see, going across from the village to the school. It took about 25 minutes from the airstrip to the village. You had to cross the river 7 times. Well, to go to the nearest village downriver was about 8 to 10 hours for good hikers if you're carrying kids and supplies and stuff. It was those guys, that family spent 2 days one time on the trail just trying to go from the nearest village downriver back up to their village. There had been a lot of rain, the river was swollen, it was dangerous to cross. They wound up having to just kind of sleep beside the river a couple of nights to let the river go down so they could get their kids across safely. Very simple. This is in the Philippines, rice, harvesting rice, pounding rice. You got to pound the hulls off the rice, then winnow the rice to get the hulls to blow off. It sounds a lot like some of the Old Testament. You read about the threshing floors and all this stuff. They got a big boar out in so they'll cut that guy up and everybody in the village will get a chunk of meat. Anyway, very, very remote, very simple. Some of the tribes are more, I don't want to say primitive, but, there's guys running around with, blowguns and loincloths and stuff, different villages in the mountains. So this is Manila, very developed, You say, well, why do we, this looks like modern city, but if you get out in the province, there's people, a road, paved road. Here's what transportation looks like. But if you get out of the city, out into the mountains, then transportation starts looking like this. There's a couple of our missionaries there out surveying a new area, pulling their bikes out of the mud hole. Infrastructure very simple, no bridge, no problem, just carry your bike across. But it didn't work so well. We were able to save that vehicle. They tied that, you can see yellow rope, they tied onto a bus on the other side. It was able to pull them out. Travel on the mountain roads, landslides, buses going off the side of the mountains. Very dangerous. Philippines is a lot of island. It's an island nation, a lot of water, a lot of islands, a lot of ferry boats. I don't know how many ferry boats capsized while we were there. It seemed like it was happening all the time. They didn't know how many people were on. They didn't have enough lifeboats, life rafts. Didn't even have a passenger manifest to know how many people were on the boat. So sometimes maybe a couple hundred people lost at sea. So we could kind of avoid all that kind of travel by flying. make it a lot easier for the missionaries. There's a strip there right in the middle of the screen. That's what that looks like on final approach. So you're going to get to a point where you can't go around, you can't out-climb the mountain. So you needed the approaches to be precise and on spot, and then at a certain point you're committed, you had to land. Give you an idea how steep some of the slopes were. Here's a picture of that runway on final approach. I don't know if you can even see it there, but right in the middle of the screen. Land going uphill and takeoff going downhill, yeah. One way in, one way out. And no go around on a lot of the strips, like you could see with the mountains and trees and stuff. That was my first landing at that strip, a new strip. You couldn't see down from the top of the strip, you couldn't see down, so you had to have somebody stand on the side, kind of give you a signal that there's no animals or people on the strip, so it was safe to take off. Strips in coconut plantations. This strip's in the river valley. It was a nice one, but mountains all around, so you kind of had to work your way in and out of there. Give you an idea there. So what some of the strips look like. Another one carved out of a coconut plantation. But you can see, you know, if you think about it, we get in there pretty close. You're not going to out-climb the hills, and so at some point you're committed. You've got to land. Not a problem on that one going out the other way, out to the ocean. But so there was our family. That was our ministry there in the Philippines. I had a couple of accidents there. Nobody was injured, but the plane kind of messed up some planes. So I was grounded by New Tribes, and we spent our last year and a half actually in Manila. Well, let me back up and say, you know, here's what this is all about. What were we doing out there? This is what it's about. So one of these guys is a believer, and one guy is still in the bondage and fear of the spirits, and I think you can tell which one is which. Just the light of the gospel, the light of Jesus in this guy's eyes. That's what it was all about. The missionaries out in these remote areas and us supporting those missionaries. So that's what it was about. So our last year and a half, though, we were in Manila. Stacy ran the guest house. She had these girls to help, you know, do the laundry and cook and clean. Stacy did a lot of running to the airport, picking up people, bringing them in and out. We came home from the Philippines on furlough, and somebody said, you need to go up and check out these people in Mata up in Arlington. See if you can be an encouragement and a help. And we wound up actually then stepping out of New Tribes and starting ministry with Mata. That's what Arlington Airport looks like on a nice day. Our hangar. What year was that? 2006. Some of the people I've trained, I think almost all those people up there, people I trained. We're going to show some videos now, just kind of go through as we have time. Have several just kind of show you what's going on at Mata. If we can, yeah, I'll just step down here.
So the purpose of this Alaska Ministry Trip 2024 was to perform scheduled inspections, maintenance, and repairs on the aircraft belonging to the Free Lutheran Association of Pilot Supporters, or FLAPS. It's a ministry in that currently there's no full-time aircraft maintenance inspector or mechanic, and so we went up there with our team to be able to help inspect the aircraft and do the scheduled maintenance repairs to the aircraft. So FLAPS uses the aircraft much like you use it as a car or a truck, just to be able to get around, to be able to do church services on a Sunday, Bible studies during the summertime, vacation Bible schools, work projects in the villages, maintaining the radio station ministry, flying kids to Bible camp, wide variety of uses, even just throwing a lawnmower into the back of the Cherokee 6 to go mow the lawn in South Naknek. A lot of practical uses to the aircraft. So we serviced 3 aircraft and inspected 3 aircraft for their annual inspections and get them ready for the next flying season. 2 of the aircraft are used directly in ministry, and the third has been kind of a backup aircraft for the ministry up there. The Cherokee 140 had several cracks in some of the structure of the cowling. Yeah, Alex was able to jump right in and under supervision of myself and Vitali, we were able to put him to work, and he was able to do a lot of the cowling repairs himself. It's just a pleasure to see him at work and doing whatever we asked of him, and to including cleaning bellies of the airplanes. And Abigail jumped right in there and helped with all the servicing as well, and was cleaning aircraft bellies too. Not always a pleasant job, you know. In the lower 48, oftentimes we're just removing oil off the bellies of the airplanes, but up there we're also removing mud and oil and dirt and grime and all sorts of fun stuff. Some of the maintenance has been deferred at this time to be able to await parts coming in. So we had opportunity to partake in the services. On Wednesday night we had Lenten soup supper and a Bible study, which I was able to lead, and then on Sunday we were able to go to Sunday school, also the church service, which I led and preached at, and then the evening service, which we did a little bit of teaching and singing and testimony sharing time. The ultimate impact of how people's lives are impacted. We hope that we were an encouragement as we were up there to the missionaries and then to the people there as well. Encourage them in God's word and in their walk and in faith, and then being able to use the gifts that God has given to each one of us. Seeing each one of the team members, seeing Vitali and Alex and Abigail and Lacey and Malachi all put their giftings that God has given to each one of them to work and to use to the furtherance of His kingdom. You know, we're working with airplanes, and the airplanes are just a tool to be able to accomplish a ministry, but it's a very important tool. Where we were in Alaska, it's 300 miles from the end of the road. There's no roads connecting to outlying villages, and so the only practical way to get around is by airplane. So being able to keep the aircraft maintained for safe operation allows us to be able to use that tool safely and effectively.
The purpose is to introduce you to world missions and how the plane is used. But remember, the mission isn't flying, the mission is reaching people.
decide whether you want to go down this path or not, because there's no sugarcoating. It's very hardcore, so you're going to get the full layout if you're interested in this or not.
I came because, one, I adore airplanes, especially that love has just grown over the past week so much.
I've never heard of another organization like this, so I feel like, as Abigail said, it's an incredible opportunity. And especially if you already love airplanes, I've grown to love airplanes even more through this camp. And really, I've been interested in missions, but now I really have a heart for missions.
I was surprised that you were able to do that, being like young and everything.
To learn more about God, missions, and aviation.
If you're unsure about coming to MATA, that you should just go for it because it's really fun, and like all the experiences are something that you're not going to find anywhere else. It's been really cool for me because I am thinking about becoming a pilot, and this not only has taught me a lot about becoming a pilot, but also about evangelism, and just how piloting can be so much more than just flying people around, but truly like you can change the world from your job. And I think if you're gonna have the whole summer off, you might as well just spend a week going and hanging out with other Christians and flying and just having a good time.
I've learned a lot more than ever have in a month of school.
You prepped before you actually just jump into the plane unknowingly.
I'll remember the structure of an airplane, how to control it in the air, how to determine a course and a heading. I want to try to remember everything because I've really enjoyed camp because it's really opened my eyes to the process of charting a course, trying to land somewhere. It's a lot more involved than I ever thought it was, and so I'd hope I could remember all of it.
You can learn a lot more about missionary aviation and just aviation in general. And when you're flying the airplane, your instructors will like keep on challenging you to do new things, like covering up all the instruments during flight.
I did enjoy the flying. I thought it was great just to be in the back and watch and learn what everyone else was doing before I went. And then when you go, once you get the feel of the plane, you understand what's really going on. And I think that was just, I don't know, it was good to learn. I've done some flight time beforehand, but now I'm actually playing around with the airplane and understanding how it all works together and what it does.
Doing my first landing was really fun. It felt like an accomplishment.
In the evenings, we have sessions where either a speaker from MATA is talking to us more about evangelism or what's going on in the world related to missionary things, or somebody comes in like from Ethnos 360. And we get to hear from lots of different speakers about experiences that they have had or different ways that we should be prepared if we want to go into the mission field. And I've really liked it because it has made me think more about evangelism, not just like if I want to be a missionary or not, but also like how to evangelize to other people in my world, like right now when I go home from camp.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions. Got a few minutes left. Bev. Oh, from that particular group right there? Some of them are still in high school. And yeah, so what you saw Mark Riersbach animated presentation. Yes, we have speakers come in for the summer camp, and like you heard some of the kids saying, learn about not just flying, but missions, evangelism. We normally think of it as like a 7 to 10 year process. So a lot of the organizations want you not only to have your commercial certificate and instrument rating, but also to be a mechanic. So usually it's a couple of years for someone to get their airframe and power plant mechanic certificates. Then they want you to have some experience in a shop, hands-on. Same with the pilot certificates. Once you've got your certificates, they want you to have, some of them want, 350, 400, 500 hours of experience. So it's a process. It's a long. We had one guy a young guy came down from Canada. He had, I guess, all the time and money. I mean, he was just here full time. He went through all the licenses in a year, but he had a company up there that was going to hire him right after he got his commercial certificate, and so I mean that was really unusual. So he was able to start building his flight time and getting paid while he was doing it, flying for like a hunting and fishing lodge up in Alberta and then up into Manitoba. But we wish we had jobs for all the young guys that get their certificates. If they could just get a flying job, and then be able to build their hours. Like for the organization, want 300 or 500 hours or whatever. So that's a tough. A lot of the road, will go is to get their instructor certificate, and then they can be building their time and somebody else paying for it. Their students paying for the flight time and for the instruction. So that's kind of a popular way to build time. But yeah, that's one thing I didn't really have time to show that video, but we do a summer camp, a summer ministry up into Alaska, and flying for Bible camp up there in Alaska. So we've been doing that for years, and take a new commercial pilot up there and give them some training in Alaska, and make sure we're confident that they can serve up there and go to some of the villages and not get lost. There's not a lot of navigation aids up there. It's a lot of, just reading the chart. And GPS really helps now. People can, plug the coordinates or whatever, plug a village in and just kind of use the GPS. We try to train them to be able to get by without the global positioning in case it goes out. Anyway, that's quite an opportunity for a new young commercial pilot to get real field experience and fly basically bringing kids into Bible camp from these remote villages. So
many of you might remember Casey Underwood. He just he's been in our training now for a while, and he just completed his instrument rating. So he has his private license, then you do your instrument rating, and then you need a total of 250 hours to then take your commercial test, plus some other training and maneuvers. So Gary's been doing a lot of the flight training there at MATA these past 18 years, and he's written all the curriculum, and our curriculum just got approved through the FAA, and that was a huge step. We were really rejoicing. It's, great job that Gary did.
yeah, so the idea with this getting the FAA approval is to be able to start taking international students. We've been having inquiries from all around the world. Some countries that don't have general aviation at all, and others where it's very, very expensive. Some of the European countries, very expensive to fly. You get charged kind of like a, what do you say, to take off and land or to talk to a tower. You know, there's landing fees or fees just for talking to the control tower. So we've had inquiries from Australia, New Zealand, Spain, Israel, England. Yeah. So if we can, it's a process to basically to get approval to be on the list for international students to come and train here. We have to kind of go through some hoops with the Homeland Security, the Transportation Security Agency and all that to get approved to do that. But anyway, we're in that process and we're moving along that way. So we hope in the not too distant future to be able to start having international students come. We have a young guy living with us right now from Indonesia. He was here in the country on a different kind of a visa, so he was okay to train here, and he just got his private certificate. So we got inquiries. New Tribes of Mission just called the other day, or Ethnos just called the other day, say they have 3 Indonesian students they'd like us to train, but we've got to, they have to be able to get the visas to come, so we're in that process.
Any other questions? Yeah, Shelley. Well, Bible camp has been our aviation camp has been a huge recruitment, and it's been exciting to see that camp bring so many students. Usually we get 1 or 2 from each year that will come back and train. As far as just the website and just word of mouth, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Website's huge. A lot of people see the website.
Yeah. When we were there, I felt really good. I mean, I wasn't afraid. And it was a shock when Martin and Gracia got taken. That was, wow, we never saw that coming. Our kids, they loved traveling around. They had a lot of freedom. They travel across the city. When we lived in Manila, my son would motorcycle across town to get to Faith Academy, and that was not an easy task, navigating those crowded roads. But yeah.
Does that answer your question, or?
You definitely saw fear and bondage in the tribal location. It was exciting to see when they saw Jesus and understood that their source and their power should come from Jesus, not from the witch doctor, or to live. When they learned truth, their eyes were open and that freedom, and you could just see there was peace, you know, and that was exciting to see as Gary would travel in and out, mostly to the different villages, and yeah, it was very encouraging. Now, many of those places, the guy that Gary said was reading notes, he's actually translating the Bible now and about finished in that language of the Northern Isnig. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. My oldest son, Tom, and his wife live in Linwood. He works for Boeing. They have 3 children, and Lindsay's a coach at the Christian school. And then my daughter, Kristen, she teaches in Colorado Springs at a classical charter school there. She teaches 3rd grade. I want to thank all those who prayed for her. Just recently, I'd shared with several just the challenges she had in her classroom, and it was neat just to see that the Lord answered those prayers, and it was better. Go ahead.
Yeah, so there they are. They turned out pretty normal for kids that, you know, were dragged overseas by their parents, you know. So Tom on the right, he's a mechanical engineer with Boeing. Steven next to him's a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He's Little Rock Air Force Base flying C-130s. David, the Superman in the middle, he's teaching in Thailand.
The same school that Pastor Walker's kids were at.
John in the red is a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He's in Saudi Arabia right now for a year. Kristen on the end's a school teacher in Colorado Springs, and a little granddaughter that photobombed there. There's Tom and his kids. Kristen, we went to visit her when she was teaching in China. Dave and his crew, the teacher in Thailand. John, they live in Colorado Springs. They just found out, he's in Saudi Arabia, just found out he's going to be assigned at the Air Force Academy. They're thrilled they're going to get to stay in Colorado Springs. Well, back at the academy, John pointing to his, so John's an academy grad, and so is Steven, so two of the kids kind of followed there. I got to give John his commissioning oath when he got promoted to lieutenant colonel. There's Steve-O. When he was flying C-130s in Yokota, Japan, they do a thing called Christmas drop, and they go to some of the islands, yeah, like Yap and Micronesia, and they actually drop Christmas packages on some of those islands. And so that's Steve-O when he was doing that. More recently, we got to ride with him in a C-130. He landed at McCord Air Force Base down here at Tacoma, and we got to fly up to Anchorage with him. So anyway, yeah. So anyway, that was kind of special. Steve-O got to come and fly for summer camp. So he came a week early, and we did the training, showed him the program, you know, what we do for the summer camp, and then he got to fly for a week for the summer camp. So that was kind of special.